First of all, thank you, Heavy Chef. Second of all, I want to thank my esteemed panel mates, Gareth. Elizabeth, I apologize. You're probably hearing this for the second time today. You probably hacked my brain earlier. It's part of how it goes these days. But first, a little bit of house cleaning. Any EFF supporters in the audience? Because, all right, because I've been banned from your meetings. You have to. You're out. You're out. No, we'll keep it civil tonight. We had a great idea 10 years ago. We had a great idea. Or at least my editor. My editor is a Serbian gentleman named Branko Brkic. He fled the Milosevic regime about 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and showed up with a backpack in Hillbrow, just at the end of the apartheid regime. He had nowhere else to go because Milosevic was going to turn him into a Serbian dish and eat him alive. So he fled to South Africa, and he had this great idea. And the idea was to start to build a culture of media that was completely untethered from what was being done during the apartheid years, right? So in 2006, when I started my career, it was this remarkable moment, right? The internet was finally starting to bite when it came to journalism, right? There were all these opportunities online, and Branko had decided to start a magazine, a glossy magazine. And because it was 2006, leading up to the financial crash in 2008, we had all the money in the world. It was amazing. I was like, Branko, a story on Mars. He was like, go, 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 go. Take rocket, build the rocket, go. There was nothing we couldn't do, right? It was right, I started my career and I felt like I was about to get on the wave, except there was no wave. Because first there was the financial crash, but even before then, and while it took a little longer to bite over here, there was this revolution that was happening. And I say the word revolution in the strongest sense of the term. The entire media landscape was being ripped to shreds, and news was going to change forever. The model that had underpinned democracies for 150 years or so, longer, was done. And we're into a new era. An era that we literally had to figure out and build for ourselves, right? So when it came to starting Daily Maverick 10 years ago, we had this amazing idea. Let's serve South Africans a shit sandwich. Something nobody wants. Hardcore news, hardcore analysis, no frills. Okay? How do you sell the unsellable, right? Now all of a sudden it's 2009, right? Clickbait has become a thing, right? Social media, with apologies, has shortened our synapses, has shortened our attention spans, right? The idea of putting 1,000 word, 2,000 word long reads up on the internet was, with all due respect, and excuse my language, fucking ridiculous. There is no chance that that could have worked. But the idea was simple. It was this: let's just get a few brains. Let's be modest in our expectations of what we can do. And let's think about how we can go after what in those days, it's a lame term now, we called thought leaders. Okay? The people who make decisions, policymakers, business leaders. Let's hit them with ideas in a way that they have never been expressed in South Africa before. With an irreverence, with an attitude, and with a punch that South Africans had never seen before. Okay? The anti-Sunday Times. Never mind breaking news on Sunday. We weren't interested in that. We were making news every day. That was the idea. So off we set on this venture. And it was pretty exciting. I think in our first year, we had as many readers. Okay, remember, this is an online publication. We had as many readers as the Mail and Guardian did in Australia. Okay, I think it was like 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. This month, we hit 2 million. 2 million readers for a website that has never compromised. Right? Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's a huge achievement. We've never compromised. Zero Miley Cyrus. Go, Google it. Google Miley Cyrus right now. Miley Cyrus and Daily Maverick. I'm probably the only writer that's put that combination together. No clickbait. We do not do that. We have stayed true to our values from day one. So how do you sell a shit sandwich? Well, first of all, you make it the best shit sandwich you can, right? Second, you stay true to your values, right? You never bend. And I would love to tell you we were tempted, and there were times we were like, you know what? Just a little bit of Beyonce. But we never were, right? Because as the sort of wellspring came up, we started to be offered out there in this maelstrom of a country, this crazy place we call home. And don't tell anyone tell you, it's worse out there. This is a crazy country. It's a crazy country. So what happened is that by opening the door, in a weird way, the news came to us. And that doesn't minimize the work that my fellow journalists have done to expose some incredible stories. But I want to tell you about a few. And the most important, in my mind, is the story that made us, that is our bedrock as a publication. And that is, I think, the most important story of this democracy. And that's Marikana. Right? Now, shortly after the massacres, a couple of days later, a day later, Greg Marinovich, who was by then a very famous Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer, said, I don't buy this. And he went out onto the killing fields and he started to do some digging. He went out there, right, and started to do some digging. And what did he find? He found that the pattern of the shootings suggested that the miners had been shot in the back, right? Which meant they were shot defenseless while running away because there were no guns on the miners. There were weapons, for sure, but there were no guns. 34 men shot to death, many of whom in the back while they were fleeing. We proved that. We broke that story, and that story changed us forever. If that was the only thing we did in 2012, that would have alone made us a publication that would have had a place in South African news history, right? When I properly came on board in 2014 or 2013, coming back from the print end, coming back to Branko and saying, okay, let's do something interesting. What we decided to do was look at the way that elections had been covered in South Africa up to this point and say, boring, right? Let's break the facade and do something that is severely interesting instead, right? Let's strip away all of the effectively regurgitating press releases or digging for scoops, and let's show South Africans how the election process actually works here. Okay? So Branko came up with this persona that he wanted me to adopt, right? And I said, what I want to do is go American, 70s, do this with a bottle of whiskey and a joint, and do it properly. And Branko, as he usually does, said, go, do it. And the name we came up with was Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter being one of the most famous literary serial killers of all time. No relation, person, but we thought it would be a fun name. And the first story I did caused this bizarre uproar. Because what I did was describe the taste of the coffee at a DA conference. And Helen Ziller was pissed. What's the coffee got to do with it? She screamed, right? But the whole point was showing that there was coffee at these things, that human beings were engaged in these interactions, that there was an actual back and forth, a flow that happened between us as journalists who absorb all of the very often bullshit that these people are throwing at us, and we somehow have to make sense of that. I wanted to show the seams, right? I wanted to get all postmodern on that stuff. And that was a fascinating way to build. Now I'm giving you the pre-seed history, but in 2017, something truly extraordinary happened. And that is through a series of accidents so bizarre, Daily Maverick had built up the respect for someone to hand over a cache of leaks that belonged to our good friends, the Guptas, to Branko. And this was the Gupta leaks. Now, in terms of South African journalism, and I would argue in terms of global journalism, this was the story of stories. Because, and here's what most people miss about the Gupta leaks. What were they? They showed how governments and corporations collude to steal from taxpayers. That's, to me, what the Gupta leaks show. They are among the great leaks like the Paradise Papers, the Panama Papers, in displaying how in a 21st century post-capital or late capitalist paradigm like our own, there is a small elite that works to skim not some, but most of the capital within a country like this one. And the Gupta leaks proved that without a doubt. And you could see what's happening in the state capture commissions now. Every single day we're being force-fed, our own excrement, because we are being shown the depth of the rot, how deep it goes, both into the corporate sphere and the government sphere. That's what the Gupta leaks have shown us, right? And other breaks right up till now, what my colleague Paulie van Beek is doing with the EFF, proving that, with respect, sir, this political party has devolved into what is effectively a mafia organization. Like many political parties, I would say like the majority of political parties anywhere in the world, they are effectively a syndicate for skimming from the top, right? So that's the précis of the news that we've done. But the real question is, how do you survive serving a shit sandwich for 10 years? How do you do it? Now, the existential threats we have faced, given the fact that we launched in the middle of this revolution, when there was very little capital available, right after the crash, right? In a really, really, really bad time, right? Where news is starting to be disseminated by, as everybody else has said here, with joy, that everyone is a journalist these days. Everyone is a media provider these days. How do you do this professionally? How do you have it fact-checked, right? How do you have some oversight mechanisms in place on the kind of journalism that you do, right? How do you do it properly, online, with no compromises, right? How do you survive? So we started out with the shareholder model, right? And started to try to pick up some advertising. Again, with respect, the big social media companies, Facebook in particular and Google, started to siphon out advertising from the online space. So advertising started to disappear. The old model of journalism, right, where Mercedes-Benz pays for a big 2-page spread, it completely disappeared, right? And so we had to figure out how we were going to survive. And there were some really, really bad months, right? But one thing the internet does provide is community, right? And what we came to the realization was that if we start to build up not a subscription model, which in a country like this one, data itself is enough of a barrier of entry to great journalism to stop people from reading what we do. We cannot put up a paywall. Impossible. That's immoral, right? People have to be able to access our work. What do we do? And the idea that was generated was we would build a membership model. Just about a year ago, we launched the membership model in Cape Town. It's called the Maverick Insider Program. It is not only a pay-as-you-go program, but effectively what we ask for is a contribution of 150 Rand a month, which for a lot of people in this country is a lot, but there are insiders who are given free programs, and we're starting to bring student programs online and a bunch of other free to go programs as well. But in the main, what we're starting to rely on is these 150 Rand per month programs, plus a bunch of other donors. You can donate what you like. All right? We started a year ago with 0. We are now at, we're now closing in on 8,000 members. Okay? Our payroll, which has gone up 70%, so we have grown 70% since last year. 33% of our payroll is taken care of by our membership program. Okay, that's extraordinary. We're aiming for 20,000 by the end of 2020. Right? And by the looks of things, we'll get there. So what we've said is that let's acknowledge the fact that the old models are dead. Let's build a hybrid model, a little bit of advertising, a little bit of shareholder donorship, a little bit of corporate donorship, but in the main, rely on our members to give us the meat that we need to survive. But let's not leave it there, okay? Let's ask our members to contribute to our journalism. So what we've been starting to do is poll our members for their expertise, right? Who has medical expertise? Who has, you know, I'm thinking of these Boeing 737 Maxes that have crashed recently. Who has aviation expertise, right? The crash of the Ethiopian Airlines flight was an African story. We should have owned that. We didn't because we don't have the expertise. Now we do, right? Who has business expertise, healthcare expertise? All of a sudden, our members start to contribute to the bedrock of our journalism. And we become stronger and more, I would argue, inviolable on account of the fact that there are 7,000 people who are helping us bolster what we do, right? Helping us be protected from making mistakes, which are inevitable in the kind of work that we do, and helping us become stronger, meaner, and in a weird way also leaner. We don't need 7 fact checkers on payroll because we know we can send it to James or Thabo or Frida. Right? We know we can get our stuff fact checked. So what we've built out of the Daily Maverick Insider program is a means to sustain the uncompromising journalism that we do and to bolster the quality of the work that we do. It's this incredible win-win. We, weirdly, for a South African company, are at the vanguard of this movement of membership-driven journalism in the world. We're one of the very few to use the technology that we do. We're one of the very few to do it in the way that we do. The benefits to insiders, and again, we don't want to make this an elite thing because we're very clear that the insider program is free to use if need be. Events, a preview on big stories, Uber vouchers, and again, incentives was never a big thing for us. We didn't want you to come to Daily Maverick for the free tote bag. You know, we want you to come to Daily Maverick for the great journalism, right? But the point is that the membership program is robust enough, the rewards are robust enough, and the rewards are self-reinforcing. You get great journalism, you give us the ability to make great journalism. That, we believe, is the future of how robust, uncompromising, investigative journalism will help further fledgling and growing democracies like our own. Thank you very much.